Hey guys, it's Ollie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Yes, this is the exact same filming session as last week's video. I'm also super sorry that this video is short. I am bulk filming today. I have a trip coming up, so I'm going to have a pet sitter over, and as you guys can imagine, with 2 dogs, 2 cats, and then some exotics, it takes a lot of prep work, so I'm doing all of that while trying to stay on top of videos, but that also means the videos are going to be just a little bit short this month. But thank you guys for your patience, and let's go ahead and get right into it. Today, I'm going to be talking about the top 5 pros for owning a bearded dragon. Last week, I did the top 5 cons, so this week, naturally, we're going to be doing pros. Because as much trouble as bearded dragons can give you, they are, in my opinion, worth it. So let's go ahead and get right into it with number 1, which is probably what everyone likes about them, is how social they are with humans. Bearded dragons cannot be cohabbed, they will fight. Prim here's actually missing some toes and the bit of her tail due to being cohabbed when she was a baby. But with people, they are social. This was a con on the last list and the amount of time you spend with them. But as you can see, they are very handleable most of the time. There are some that don't like it, but most bearded dragons are pretty handleable, pretty tolerable. They seem to enjoy the time they spend with their humans. So it's really fun to have like a lizard that kind of seems to enjoy being held and pet and getting out of their enclosure. So that is always a plus for me. Which ties into our second point, which is that they are pretty entertaining. Like Prim here, I could watch her for hours. She's never boring. She's always doing something funny or something chaotic. And frankly, I just love it. I love watching her so much. They just have some really kind of quirky behaviors. They're very fun little lizards to watch. They're fun to have out of their enclosure and watch like run around. That sort of thing. They like outside time. But yeah, there's never a dull moment in this house when you are looking at Prim's enclosure. She definitely steals the show. And our third point is that bearded dragons are very readily available and relatively cheap. They are relatively easy to come by. They're very readily available in the pet trade. They're all captive bred at this point, and while their setups can cost a decent amount of money, the dragon themselves and the startup is relatively cheap, especially for this size of a lizard. Not very expensive at all. So bearded dragons originally come from Australia, and I believe at this point you can't take any more wildlife like out of Australia. So all of the specimen we have in the US, unless something goes wrong, is all captive bred. You're not going to get wild caught bearded dragons. There's not really a risk of that. So that is always a fun thing. And because of that, that brings us into our next point. There's also a ton of information on them and how to care for them, which is always really nice. It's always nice to get so many opinions on how to care for an animal rather than have a couple sources. So since they're so readily available, they have a ton of care and ton of advice out there, ton of support groups out there. A lot of exotic vets also do take them, not all as we discussed in the last video, but a good chunk of them do. There's just a lot of care advice and a lot of guides and that sort of thing on them. It's very easy to find things out about bearded dragons. And my last point for bearded dragons, I'm sorry that this was so short, but my last point for today's video is their lifespan. So as you guys probably know, if you have seen my other pro and cons for animals, is lifespan is a big one for me. So in the wild, they usually live between 5 and 8 years old, but in captivity, they can live to be 8 to 12 years old. I've heard of some even going to 15 to 20 years old, which is insane. So it's not as long as personally I would like. I like super long-lived animals. However, it's not anything to sneeze at. That's still a long time to commit to a pet. Primrose here is about 5 years old. I think she's turning 6 this year. But yeah, so they are still quite the commitment, but they're not super long. Like, you're not going to need to put them in your will or anything like that. You're not going to need to plan for them for really even 20 years. So they're not a super long commitment, but they are a decent one. Alright guys, well that was all for today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed this list today. Comment down below if you have any more pros for a bearded dragon. As always, don't forget to hit the like for the algorithm. All of my links, including my Instagram, my art account, and my Facebook group, are in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you are into this kind of content or really any animal kind of content. I upload every single Saturday around 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but you can hit the bell if you don't want to remember that. And as always, I will see you guys next week. Bye.